So without further ado, let me get going, helping you to find HMO deals that stack in 2024. So tonight, I've got 3 promises for you. First of all, I've got some great content that you can implement straight away. Because isn't it annoying when you spend an evening learning something and you think, you know, I didn't really learn anything. It was just a big upsell. Well, I'm not going to do that to you tonight. I'm going to give you fantastic content that you can go away with straight away. Secondly, there's a fantastic offer of some tools. I'm sure we all love free tools. Who doesn't love a freebie? Wave at me if you love a freebie. Wave at me if you'd like to be thanked for being here this evening by me giving you one of my tools that I'm using right now to analyze my deals. Who would like one of those? Give me a wave. Yes, fantastic. Thank you. And thirdly, I'm going to tell you a little bit about how you can work with me if you want to know more about some of these insider tips and tricks that I've learned over 25 years of investing and over the last 10 investing in HMOs. That's been my specialist sort of subject area, my specialist area of investing for the last 10 years. But I have done other things as well. But I've really focused on HMOs because I wanted to create a systemized, profitable business that worked without me. So deals has been at the center of everything that I've done in my property journey. Some of my deals have been better than others. And I'm sure that those of you who are experienced would probably say the same, that you've probably had some really good deals. And then you've had others which you thought, nah, not that great. If you can relate to that, give me a thumbs up. Has anybody out there ever had a deal that you thought, meh, it was a bit of a meh deal? Michael's said yes. I think any of us who've done maybe more than 5 or 6 deals, you're going to get one, aren't you, that just doesn't quite, hit the target. Something goes wrong with it. Something happens. For some reason, it just doesn't quite work out. But, that's the great thing about property. You can carry on. You can sell it, actually, if it doesn't work. So finding deals is more than just finding property. And this is one thing I would emphasize, is that finding a deal is more than just finding a property. You see, to me, finding a deal is something you can add value to. So it's something that hasn't quite finished in terms of where it could be, whether that's taking a property and turning it into a cash flowing HMO. That's one way to add value. Maybe it's taking a property and doing a conversion, loft conversion or extension on the back. Maybe it's taking a property and changing its use class, so planning permission. Maybe it's dividing it up, making it into separate units. There's all sorts of things you can do to add value to a property. And to me, that's a critical factor in as to whether I think something's a deal or not. A deal also has to make you money. And I know you might think, yeah, that's kind of obvious, Wendy, but not always. Sometimes people do it because they think it's going to make them look good. Sometimes people do it because it's going to, add a little bit of a shiny penny to their portfolio. But ultimately, if it's not making money, then it's not a deal. The other reason is because it helps you build your business. If you're in the property game, you need to be finding deals all the time, because these are the deals that will build your business. They will add to your cash flow. They'll add to your asset pot. They will add to your long-term wealth. So finding deals is critical to that. And the other thing that I've noticed is that when people stop looking for deals, they lose momentum. They lose energy in their business. They suddenly get sluggish. They find that they're living off the deals that they did a few years ago, but they're not really growing. So being out there, finding deals, doing some of the things that I'm going to talk to you tonight about doing is going to not only grow your business, but it's actually going to really energize you. It's going to make you feel like you've had a rocket put up you, because you're going to get excited again at the possibilities that are out there. And I think that's really important, because right now things are a bit tough in the property world, aren't they? We've got recession. We've just found out today that the UK has entered recession. We know that, there's lots and lots of issues with Section 24. There's lots of landlords selling up. There's lots of challenges, legislation, regulation, and so on in the whole market. But frankly, that's always been the case since I've been buying property. There's always been challenges. But do I regret doing what I've done? Absolutely not. This is the best business to be in. So what constitutes a deal? Well, I think it has to be mutually beneficial. So it's something that benefits you, but also the person you're buying it from or doing the deal from, because it might not be buying. You might be doing a purchase lease option, or you might be doing a rent to rent. You might be using some creative skill to secure that property. You want to try and make money from day one. So in other words, you're building in value from the very start of when you actually secure that property. You need to have a purchase or an agreement that allows you to add value. So it can't be so restrictive that it doesn't allow you to do what you need to do to make money. And it must be cash flowing after the refurb or the refinance. Sometimes there are stages to this. Now, these are my base rules for doing a deal. And if my deal doesn't tick those boxes, I don't do it. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been negotiating on a couple of deals, one in Stoke and one in Crewe, which is where I invest. And one of them I think is going to go ahead. The other one, I don't think it's going to work because the other side, the other party, isn't really willing to meet me halfway. So it's not mutually beneficial. It might be beneficial for them, but I don't think it's going to be beneficial for me. And that means it's not a deal. It has to be beneficial to both parties. So what are the things you need to know when you are securing a deal? Almost before you have decided finally that you want to go ahead with that purchase or with that offer or with that negotiation. The first thing is getting your purchase and your securing costs ready. And I think that's really key. You've got to know what the purchase price is, whether it's today or in the future. And of course, the other implications for that, costs, fees, and stamp duty. Now, of course, if you've done this before, this is kind of basic knowledge. So, you would know this already. But if you're new to property, some of these things can sometimes be a bit of a surprise. You haven't realized that you need to factor in all those extra costs. So make sure you factored in all the costs that are necessary for you to secure that deal. It might even be that you are having to use, a specialist commercial solicitor, or you're having to use a specialist mortgage broker, for example, and you haven't thought about their fees. Make sure that you capture all of those initial purchase price fees as well as the purchase price of the property. The second thing that you need is to know the refurb. If you're going to be undertaking a refurb to add that value, then it's really important to understand how much that's going to cost you. Now, every year in my coaching and training business, I produce a new refurb calculator. And this is a piece of a document, I suppose, that I've created. If I printed it off, it would be a piece of paper, I think 3 or 4 sides. And it is a list of all the jobs that you're likely to undertake in a refurb. And what I've done is I've tracked these costs across the UK. And every year I do a little bit of a kind of analysis of those figures and look to see whether those costs are still true in the current marketplace. So at the end of the webinar, if you're interested in getting a copy of my refurb calculator with all the costs on, I'm going to tell you how you can get it, but you'll have to stay to the end of the webinar to find out. So refurb calculator is very important because you need to know how much plasterboard you're going to have to buy or your builder's going to have to buy. You need to know how much it's going to cost you per square foot to be able to do the plastering or the decorating or the carpeting in the property. All of those come down to having a really good cost analysis. I would also recommend that if you're going to do a reasonable size refurb, you need to have a builder. So ideally, you want to have a builder who is almost like a consultant. And we have a friend who is a builder. We work with him on probably about 8 projects so far. And he now almost is like a consultant in our business. So I can phone him up and I can say, Mark, can you just give me a bit of 10 minutes on this particular property? I'm not sure about this. And what do you think about the costs on this? This is my estimate. And he will give me his measured opinion on whether he thinks I'm about in the right ballpark or whether I've actually got it totally wrong. Now, you might not have a mark. So that's where my refurb calculator will come in, because that will really help you to weigh up whether those costs are the kind of costs that you're looking at in terms of your refurb. And then the final thing that you need to be thinking about is the income versus the outgoings, because there's no point creating a property if you're just going to be losing money on it every month. So first of all, with HMOs, I tend to use Spare Room to look at the current market. That's a really, really good tool. If you haven't got on Spare Room already, go to Spare Room. It's a shame there's no competition for Spare Room. I do think that a bit of competition might actually sharpen it up and modernize it a little bit, but there we are. I still think the Spare Room is often the best guide to room rents in your area. So find out what the likely rental income would be if you're going to create an HMO. And then you need to deduct all your monthly running costs from that. I know it's simple. Well, it sounds simple, but it isn't if you've forgotten something. But that way, you will be able to work out what your profit is going to be every month. And those three areas of purchase or securing costs, refurb costs, and income versus outgoings are really the key parts of what you need to know before you can secure a deal. And guess what? Yes, I even have a spreadsheet to track those costs. And guess what? If you stay till the end of the webinar, I'll tell you how you can also get a copy of this spreadsheet. So how's that? Already two very good tools to give away. If you like the idea of getting some free tools to help you to do your calculations on the deals that you find, yes, just wave at me. Peter has got the idea, or give me a thumbs up or a heart, or put a W for Wendy in the chat box, or some other way of telling me that you're excited and you think this is good. Thank you, Lisa. Lisa sent me a heart. Thank you. Love to you too, Lisa. That's amazing. Thank you so much. Because without these tools, I use these tools all the time. Without them, I would be lost. We're doing a deal at the moment, purchase lease option on a commercial building, turning it into an HMO and an office space. And without this spreadsheet, I would be lost. I would have got my figures wrong. I would have got some of my data wrong. I wouldn't have thought through some of the costs of doing that deal. But what's great about it is it's given me confidence then. It's with a commercial agent, gives me confidence to speak to the commercial agent and say, this is my bottom line. I can't go any further than this on this particular deal, because if I go further, this is where it ends up in negative. So you can be confident about what you're doing. It's really, really useful. And the thing is, what I've learned is a lot of what gets talked about in the media and in, out there, probably in the government as well. Boo to the government. It's all BS. Now, you probably don't think that I mean that BS, and you'd be right. It's your belief system. Because I think that when you find these deals, when you find a deal that works, it massively increases your belief system in what's possible. And I think that's critical to have a good and high belief system. Because too often we're told it can't be done. That's not going to work. You can't do that. Even with the deal that I'm negotiating at the moment, I sense there's resistance. I sense there's resistance from the vendor to meet me halfway. That's okay. My belief system says there will be another deal. There'll be another deal just around the corner. Because in this world of uncertainty, many people want something that is certain and secure. And if I can offer them certainty and security, I think we may have a deal. But it does take work. This is not something that's just going to necessarily land on your dinner plate one evening that, hey, I've got a deal. It will take a little bit of action and putting it into practice. Peter, I see your question. I will come back to you in 1 second on that one. Very good question. Love it. So these are the 7 insider methods that I'm going to talk to you about tonight. It might be that you've already started to use some of them, which is fine. I'm hoping I might be able to shed a little bit of light and help you to use those tools better. But I suspect there's some things here which you probably aren't using. Certainly when I did some research to put this piece together, there were things that I came across and I thought, wow, that's a really great tool. I'm going to have to start using that. So I want to share some of those tools with you this evening as well, because however experienced you are, just as well as I do, you can always learn something from what other people are doing. So stay tuned in, because I want to go through each of these one by one and we're going to whiz through them. You can see I'm kind of a bit excited about this evening. But I am excited because I love finding deals and I love helping other people find deals as well. I want to share with you one of the deals that we did, which again, on the surface, looked like a really not a deal. And I think many people would have seen this property and thought, what can you do with that? When we found this property, this is a property in Stoke, and it was, you can see from the floor plan on the slide, a very unusual shaped property. It was an L-shaped property. You went in through the sitting room, if you can see that on your screen. To the left, there was a lounge, and then there was a little office off that, and then a storage room. Straight ahead, there was a dining room, a kitchen, and a shower room at the bottom. And then upstairs, there were 3 beds and a very large bathroom, and there was a dressing room off bed 1. Now, would you believe it? We turned this into a 7-bed HMO. This was the floor plan before, and this was the floor plan after. We did a little bit of jiggery pokery. We moved a little bit here, a little bit there. We put it in en suites, but we turned this into a 7-bed HMO. Now, this was a property that had been on the market for a while, and other people had overlooked it because they probably hadn't seen what I could see. They probably hadn't seen the possibilities in this property. And I would like you to open your eyes to what's possible. We go back to that belief system. If you believe that you can do it, you're more likely to open that front part of your brain, that prefrontal cortex, that is the creative, imaginative part that goes, do you know what? I could take that property and I could turn that into a 7-bed HMO as well. And that's exactly what we did. So here are some numbers on it. Bought it for 123,250. We never put in a round offer. That's another little tip to use. If you're ever in negotiations or you think there's somebody else who might be competing with you and you want to secure the deal, don't put in a round figure. Always put in some funny figure at the end. We've got lots and lots of deals that way. Spent £5,240 on the stamp duty and the solicitor's fees, mortgage costs. The refurb was £66,500. It got revalued at a great price, £260,000. Income, £3,560 per month. And the profit after all costs was about £1,800 a month. It is about £1,800 a month. It's gone up a little bit since then because rents have gone up. So annual profit of £21,600. 100% return on investment. Isn't that absolutely, fantastic? A really, really good HMO. Now, this is what it looked like at the end. It's not the most super whizzy HMO. It's in an area very, very close to the hospital, and it does very, very well with hospital staff. We have a lot of hospital staff who rent our rooms. Many of them actually go home at the weekend, so they tend to use it kind of during the week. But it's not, your sort of amazing Instagrammable HMO. It's a bit of a basic HMO, but it works really, really well. And it's tenanted 100%, fully tenanted, more or less 98% of the year. And this was a project that I call the magic moment of a project, where you put your money in, you do your refurb, and you get the money out, and you can go again. Show me your hand, wave at me, put a thumbs up if you like the idea of getting those kind of deals where you can put your money in, you do the refurb, you get your money out. Who wants to recycle their cash? Who else apart from Lisa and Michael want to recycle your cash? Oh, yes, there are others who want to do this too. Because to me, that's the magic moment. And I know you can't always do it. And we haven't always done it. We've had to leave money in the deal. And I've actually got other strategies that I use when I've had to leave money in the deal, when I haven't been able to when I haven't been able to refinance and pull my money out. But those times when you can, doesn't it give you a great feeling? Yes, it is that punching the air, isn't it, with your fist moment where you realize, I've done it. This is superb. But it doesn't always happen. So that's why you've got to be a little bit assiduous. You've got to be a little bit choosy about the deals that you do. And that's why you should always be looking for deals. Okay. I hope you get the theme of tonight's session. And you might wonder, why on earth has Wendy put a slide up of her family on the screen? Well, it's because I want to tell you that this is the reason I do it, is for my 4 boys and my soon-to-be daughter-in-law. Yes, it's very exciting. They're getting married. And I know that for many of us, we do property for ourselves, for our families, but it might be because you want to leave your job. It might be because you want to create a different lifestyle. I don't know what your reason is, and I'm sure you have a very good reason why you're here this evening. And this is my reason. These are my lovely boys, and this is the reason I do it. And I know that had I, because sometimes it's tough, sometimes property is tough. You're dealing with regulation and legislation, and things can go wrong, and there's risks, and there's challenges and difficulties. I know that if I hadn't had a reason at times to keep going, to pushing forward, to making things happen, I would have given up. And I think it's really important that we learn how not to give up when we're doing something that's tough, because it could be that just over that hill is where you'll be successful. Just around the bend, if you just carried on a bit longer, you could have got that deal. You could have won that negotiation. You could have secured that property, and you were so glad that you didn't give up. And I know many people at the moment are giving up in property because they are fed up with it for one reason or another. But I don't want to give up. I want to keep going because I think there's still a lot more ways in which we as property investors can benefit our communities, society, and the wider world. You see, I kind of think of myself as being one of those football players on the pitch. I don't want to be just in the stands. I don't want to be somebody just kind of looking on and seeing other people get deals and seeing other people do stuff and looking on social media and they've secured this deal or they're doing this refurbishment. I want to be one of those people who's actually on the pitch doing it. And that's why I am on the pitch doing it. Okay, I might not be, Premier League HMO investor, but I am on the pitch. And I don't really care whether you're League Division 3 or Premier League. The point is, are you playing on the pitch? Are you refining your game? Are you improving your skills? Are you growing as a property investor? Now, one of the ways in which I'd like to help you, serve you to grow is by coming along to a day event that I'm holding a week on Saturday in London. Just going to tell you very quickly about it. £99 plus VAT. It's a fantastic day. You get your lunch, you get all your refreshments, a wonderful day. I've got a special guest coming along as well. And I think that he might even be here a bit later on, which will be very exciting. I've only got 3 places left though. So if you'd like to come along to that HMO Discovery Day, then I would love to have you there. I'll put the link you can see there is the website. I'll put it up a little bit later as well. So if you want to come along to that, it's a full day and we've got some amazing case studies, lots and lots of great experiences, lots of exercises, lots of interactivity. You will go away buzzing. You will go away thinking, I just really want to work with Wendy. I want to learn her 5-step system. I want to make this happen because I can see that this is the key to me changing my income, potentially changing my life, if that's where you want to go. Now, a few tools. I'm going to jump on to a few tools that you'll also get on that particular day. You'll get our HMO Discovery Experience bonus bundle. Yes, indeed. You'll get your HMO business setup checklist. So if you haven't already set up an HMO business and you're starting, that will be a fantastic way of checking you've got everything that you need to get going. You're going to get my goal setting focus sheet. And this is a very important tool when it comes to tracking and monitoring your activity. It's very easy, isn't it, to say you're going to do something and then actually not doing it. You'll get my 16 weeks to success tracker. So it goes from literally week 1 to week 16, all the processes of finding, funding, finishing, filling, and future-proofing your HMO. And you get a lot more besides. You will get that as a bonus for coming to that one-day discovery experience. We'd love to have you there. And I know we're just going to have an amazing day together. And the bundle, oh, I forgot. I didn't realize the star was there. The bundle is worth over £399. There we go. I'll just add that in. Okay, let's move back to the 7 insider methods. So 7 insider methods. First of all, online. Okay, and thank you very much, everybody, for... special guest has arrived. Okay, I see you. I'll bring you in 1 second, Darren. Really good to have you here. So, the Discovery Day, apologies, is in London. It's at the Danubius Hotel in London. In fact, let me just quickly pause this because I know there's a few people who are just asking about this. So I'll very, very quickly just pause my screen and give you the details. I'll put the link in the chat panel. so that those of you who are interested, because I do only have a few spaces left. So if you want to secure your place, you click on that link, and then you'll be taken to a page, and you can pay tonight, and you can secure your space on that event. Let me just very quickly also just tell you what the bonuses are. So that's how you'll get your bonuses. And let me just introduce, I'm going to just promote you, Darren, to a panelist. Introduce my very, very special guest for this evening, who is Darren Brewer. I'm sure many of you know Darren. Wave at me if you already know Darren. If you've heard of Darren, if you haven't heard of Darren, I'm going to just bring him on 1 second, because Darren is coming. He's going to be my very special guest next Saturday. And I'm absolutely pumped that he's going to be there. Darren, good evening. Evening. So next Saturday, we're going to have a great day, aren't we?
We are. Sorry, I'm late. Yeah,
no worries.
I was dealing with a typical HMO moment. So yes, HMO moment. Yes, well, really looking forward to Saturday. Next Saturday, can't wait.
It's going to be great, because you're going to be talking about some of your bigger commercial conversions as well, aren't you? So people who are thinking about doing commercial conversions, this is going to be great for you, because it isn't just going to be about taking an ordinary property, lots of which I've done, and I'll be sharing my 5-step system to help you to do that. But Darren's also going to do some case studies about taking bigger commercial properties, getting planning permission, turning those into HMOs.
Yeah, and look, Wendy, I started off ProPods when I was doing houses. ProPods 1 to 5. A 3 to 7s and 3 to 8s, and from ProPod 6 we've done commercial. So I think there'll be a good level of experience between the two of us of how to look at different angles of different types of properties. And I haven't told you this, but we're actually doing a new build.
Fantastic. Well, listen, we can't wait to hear all about it. Stay on the line. If you can stay tonight, that'd be fantastic. I'm going to carry on with the content so that everybody gets really good content this evening, because that's what I promised them, and I don't like to let people down, as you know, Darren. And so we're going to go back to the content. But yeah, if anyone's got any questions about next Saturday, please put them in the chat panel, and we'll do our best to answer them. Because we've only got a few spaces left, though, please do reserve your place ASAP to make sure that we don't run out. And once you reserve it, you should get an automatic email to say that you're in. Okay, so let me go back to the slideshow. So yeah, no, it's going to be absolutely amazing next Saturday. I know we're going to have
one thing Wendy will tell you is it's never a dull moment.
True.
Yes. So if you want some entertainment value, it's probably worth just coming for that, to be honest with you. So
absolutely.
Yeah, never a dull moment.
It's going to be a lot of fun. Okay, right. So 7 insider methods. We've talked about Elphinstone Road. Let me move on from Elphinstone Road. So let me tell you about some of the ways that I found some of the deals. Okie doke. Sorry, flip. Here we go. Okay, so first of all, online. I'm sure many of you do this already. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this one. Rightmove, Zoopla, on the market. And one that often people don't know about is home.co.uk. Home.co.uk, it's not very pretty. It's not very user-friendly, but it's a really good website because it allows you to search by very specific areas, by specific postcodes, by specific estate agents. You can even find properties that are on with certain estate agents, but those estate agents haven't put them on Rightmove or Zoopla for whatever reason. Sometimes it's because it's too expensive for them to use Rightmove and Zoopla, because it is expensive, particularly Rightmove. Other reasons it's because maybe the vendor is being a little bit slow and dragging their feet. So the estate agent doesn't want to utilize one of their listings for a property where they're not sure it's actually going to sell. Or it might be there's some problems with that property. There's problems with the title. There's problems with some aspect of security on it. And so again, the estate agent doesn't necessarily want to have lots and lots of viewings and lots of inquiries if that deal is not going to be able to be closed. So look at Home, a very, very good website to use. Now, with all of these, you're going to have to create a bit of a system. If you're going to become systematic about looking for deals, about finding deals, one of the other sides of the coin is, while it's fantastic and exciting, the bad part is you have to become a bit disciplined about it. You have to say to yourself, do you know what? I've got to do this every week, Because as soon as you start to do this every week, you will soon start to find that your inbox will start to fill up, your diary will start to fill up, your time will start to go, because you'll be doing viewings, you'll be checking out properties, you'll be doing analysis on them. But the question is, how many deals do you need to reach your goal? Whether your goal is financial freedom, whether it's another £1,000 income a month or another £5,000 income a month, you don't need loads and loads of properties to meet those kind of goals. That's the fantastic news. So even if this system and this process has to be set up and it has to be organized and you have to be disciplined about it, remember, we're training to be a Premier League football player on the HMO pitch, folks. That's where we're going with this. That means you're going to have to take some action and actually make it happen. The other side of online, of course, is the DIY sell your own estate agents that are popping up. So Purple Bricks, Yopa, Strike, sold.co.uk. These are all ones in which the individual homeowner can put their property on the market. They don't have to use an estate agent. There's no middleman, and they advertise on these particular websites. Have you got your checking so that every week you're going on to each of these sites, maybe spending 5 or 10 minutes, doesn't need to take a long time, searching for properties in your area? Because a lot of these will not go on Rightmove or Zoopla. Oh no. And I know that a lot of deals totally bypass Rightmove and Zoopla. So if Rightmove and Zoopla are the only ways at the moment you're finding properties, you may be missing out on some really, really golden deals. And this is another way that you can find some of those great deals. Bear in mind that you will have to deal directly with the vendor very often, or there might be a middleman. Sometimes there is a middle agent that they work with. It's more awkward. It can be a bit more time consuming, organizing the viewing, waiting for the response. It's probably not going to be as slick as if it were going through an estate agent, but you've got the benefit that you can do a direct to vendor negotiation. And you can often find some really good deals this way. We've had a couple of viewings on properties. I don't think I've ever bought anything actually directly from one of these sites, but we've had a couple of really positive viewings on properties advertised on one on Purple Bricks and one on Strike. Third way, estate agents. Yes, your good old high street estate agent. Did you know that 95% of property transactions take place through an estate agent? 95%. So that's a huge amount of properties all every day being bought and sold, and 95% of those happen through a high street estate agent. I'm going to come on to commercial in a minute. So don't ignore your estate agents. Make friends with them. Take them in, nice box of chocolates or box of donuts or perhaps box of apples if you're feeling a bit healthier. But make sure that you are staying in touch with estate agents. I've had some of my best deals from estate agents. In fact, I'll tell you a bit about one in a moment. But the thing about estate agents is you've got to remember that, of course, there's something in it for them. And with an estate agent, they are looking for certain factors to feel that they can work with you, and they can work with you and give you the best deals that come across their books. So just like many vendors, estate agents are also looking for certainty. You see, they don't want that deal to fall through. And did you know that 2 out of 3 residential sales fall through? 2 out of 3. It's a really high number in the UK. Well, especially actually in England, but Scotland has a different system. But England sales are terrible for falling through. So if you are an investor, it's much more likely that you can convince the estate agent you are committed to that particular purchase, that particular property. Why? Because you're not going to live in it. You've got much less likelihood that you're going to pull out because you're thinking, oh, do you know what? The garden's not big enough. Or, oh, do you know what? I don't like that fireplace after all. Because it's likely you're going to probably change it all anyway if you're going to turn it into an HMO. So certainty for the estate agent is really critical. The other thing is the fact that you're chain free. Now, how many of us think that that's an advantage? Well, it is when it comes to an estate agent, because chains often break down. Some friends of ours were in a chain just before Christmas. They'd sold their house. 4 weeks later, the chain's broken down. Somebody's had buyer's remorse or perhaps a mortgage offer that they realized they didn't like and they couldn't afford, the house has gone back on the market. So all those 6 properties that are in the chain, they're all now back on the market. That's a real headache for an estate agent who was thinking, oh, great, I can make my goal this month. I can make my targets for sales. Oh, all those sales have fallen through. So the fact that you're chain free and you're an investor is a really strong selling point. The third one is cash. Now, we don't always have cash. Some of us will invest with cash. Some will use mortgages, bridging. There's lots of different ways of doing it. But if you've got cash, then that's a real advantage. But equally, if you've got good credit and you can demonstrate to the estate agent that you've got a decision in principle or an agreement in principle, in other words, that you're organized, you've got all your ducks in the row, you're demonstrating to the estate agent that you mean what you say and you're going to carry through, they're much more likely to prioritize you. And then the fifth thing is the cost. And what I mean by that is the cost of doing business with you is cheap, because they don't necessarily have to work too hard to get you over the line. You're already ready to go. You're a much cheaper person to deal with than a residential buyer who might want 20 viewings on 20 different properties because they haven't made their mind up about where they want to live, or they haven't made their mind up about what size of kitchen they want, or they're umming and ahhing, or they may be comparing one property to another property in another estate agents because they can only buy one property. With an investor, the estate agent actually has far less cost because it's much more likely you will complete on the deal. It's much more likely they will get their commission from the vendor. Everybody very, very happy. So whether you're looking to buy or you're looking to do something like rent to rent, where you might be working with an estate agent or you might be working direct with the vendor, it's really important that you are ready. What I mean by that is have some of your documents absolutely ready to go. And this is where a bit of organization and a bit of tidying up needs to happen. So I would recommend a number of things. Number one, aside from some of the things you see there, is an ability to sell yourself. You see, if you can sell yourself to the estate agent and demonstrate why, although your offer might be slightly lower than your competitors' offer, and you might be out of town, whereas your competitor might be, a local person, and you're an investor rather than being a residential purchaser. There's a lot of things that you can sell yourself with, which the residential buyer doesn't have. They're much more likely to fall out of the chain. They're much more likely to have cold feet, have buyer's remorse, but you're not going to do that. So make sure that when you're working with an estate agent, you really are selling yourself so that you can get those deals. That's really important.
Wendy, can I just interact? I know it's your show. Sorry.
Go on, Darren. I'll take a sip of water.
As an ex-estate agent and an estate agent owner, I would say 70% of the deals that we done with buyers was because the buyer made themselves known to us.
Great.
Yeah. I still now go into estate agents and take them out for a coffee, mainly commercial agents. But when I first started, I used to have a coffee and donut moment, because if you didn't like coffee, you love donuts. And if you don't like donuts, you normally like coffee, right? And I find Rightmove and all the Zoopla and on the market a great tool, but that agent, you need to make them your friend, because when a deal falls through, they're going to think, I know who's going to buy that.
Yeah.
I know he's not going to muck me about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I'm just giving you a bit of a heads up. We've got a bit of a chain that's about to fall through. Do you fancy nipping in and keeping the chain together? And I might be able to do this and this and that and blah, blah, blah. So that local knowledge and your local agent is key to how you grow your portfolio.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Darren, I'd forgotten, of course, your background. So that, there you see, we have it from the horse's mouth there. Darren's saying exactly what I've experienced from the other side. And I've talked to lots of agents, of course. I found out what they're looking for. And this property is exactly one of those that fits this bill. So this is a property that I had a phone call one morning. This is about 4 years ago, 11 o'clock in the morning, got a phone call from one of my estate agency friends in Crewe. Wendy, I am going out to value a property this afternoon about 1 o'clock, and I really think it could be right up your street. I mean, it literally is right up my street because we have a 7-bed HMO just a little bit further down. So it's up my street in more ways than one. And I said to this guy, yeah, I would be very interested. And he described the property to me. And he said, well, I'm going to value it at 1 o'clock. Would you like to do a viewing at 1:10? And I said, really, that quickly? He said, why not? So I said, well, okay, then I'll come down. I'll give you a bit of time, though. I'll come at 1:30 so you can talk to the vendor. So I turned up, went into this lovely double-bayed, large property, which was being used as a single buy-to-let. The investor was moving out of town. He wanted to sell. And he had literally just agreed the price with the estate agent 15 minutes beforehand. The vendor was on his way out of the building as I was on my way in. I was literally the first person to view that property. I went up to the estate agent and he told me the price and the asking price, and I made an offer. The estate agent ran out of the door, waving his clipped chart at the vendor, and the vendor agreed to the price. The deal was done in less than an hour. And we turned this property into a 5-bed HMO, which was investor funded, by the way. So this is what you can do when you build those relationships with people. This is all about building relationships. Yes, it's about finding deals, but it's also about finding people. So it was a 3-bed, large, terraced Victorian property. We had investor finance to buy it with. We didn't actually have to do much of a refurb. It was actually in very, very good condition. We did a bit of a light refurb, only spent about £15,000 putting in fire doors, smoke alarms, smoke detectors. We put in a new shower downstairs. Upstairs, it had 2 en-suites already. So there are 3 rooms that share a bathroom, and then 2 have their own ensuite. So it isn't fully ensuited. And we took this property from giving us £250 a month property as a single buy-to-let, as it was then, to £1,120 a month profit. And these are some pictures of the property. The kitchen, as you see, that was how we bought it. And that is what it looks like today. We didn't have to do anything to the kitchen. It was already like this. In fact, many of the rooms were in very, very good condition already. We simply had to put some furniture in them. And it rents out. Is a very popular property because it has is in a very good location, and it has some great amenities. So would you like to have a deal like that? Oh, sorry, Natasha, you can't see the pictures. Right, I'm sorry. Yes, I should be. Why is this not showing? I'm so sorry. Just 1 second. Thank you for pointing it out to me. Right, just say yes if you can see those pictures. Put Y in the chat panel just so I know you can see that. Yeah, Michael said hello. Yeah, he's waved at me. Okay, let me. So this is the front of the property. You probably missed this screen as well. So let me show you this. This is the front of the property here, and then this is what it looked like afterwards. So because we didn't do a full refurb, we didn't need to redecorate everywhere, and we wanted to be as careful as we could with the funding that we had. We had investor finance to buy it, but we didn't have a lot of money to put into the refurb. So we did a light refurb, but of course it's turned into a really, really lovely cash flowing machine. So how can you add value? We spoke earlier on about doing deals, and part of the aspect, I believe, of doing a deal is actually finding where you can add value to a property. So what can you do? Well, first of all, you can refurbish it to improve the appearance and condition. And that ranges everything from doing a back to brick conversion right down to be doing a basic conversion or a basic refurb like we did at Ruskin Road. Really a fairly light touch refurb. You could subdivide it into small units. And of course, this is where the HMO strategy works beautifully, because you take a property like that had 3 large bedrooms, 2 reception rooms, and a big kitchen diner. There was a family living there before. They were paying about £650 a month rent. No wonder the landlord wanted to sell. If he knew what I know, he would have turned that into an HMO and he would have tripled his profit overnight. Well, he didn't come to any of my webinars, did he? He didn't learn what you're learning tonight. But turning it into smaller units of accommodation that's still good quality that people want to rent, that's a great way of adding value. I mentioned earlier that you could do an extension into the loft or the attic space. You can dig down into the basement. Sometimes basements are great places as long as you get the head height and you've got the light. You could do an extension at the side or the back of the property. You could do a change of use, convert it, and you can get a planning uplift. There's lots of ways in which you can take property and add value to it. Number 4, commercial agents. Now, this is a really powerful strategy because I think a lot of people who are doing HMOs tend to still be rather focused on residential. They tend to think about a typical, like that one on Ruskin Road, 3-bed property, or even the one on Elphinstone Road, and they think I'll turn that into an HMO. And that's usually because, of course, it's easier from the point of view of planning, because in most parts of the country, you can automatically take a C3 property, which is a normal family home, and turn it into a 6-bed, and that is counted as a C4 property. And in lots of parts of the country, you can do that under what's known as permitted development. You don't have to get planning permission. But as soon as you go into a 7-bed or more HMO, or you're using commercial buildings to turn it into HMOs, that's when planning permission starts to, kick off. And I know for a lot of people, they just don't want the headache. But, commercial doesn't necessarily mean a headache. In fact, commercial can be a big win. And of course, this is why Darren is coming along on Saturday, because I'd like him to talk a little bit about some of his commercial properties. Darren, let me just kind of ask you briefly, what would you say are the benefits of working with commercial agents when you're doing HMOs?
So I think the main thing is that most commercial agents don't want to be dealing with the smaller commercial properties. So they want to be able to get those off their books fairly quickly. Normally, they've probably managed that property for probably 15, 20 years. The owners decided they want to sell it. And for the agent, it's probably worth £2,000 or £3,000 in fees, where they could be selling something a lot bigger for a lot more fees, or finding a tenant for a 50, 60, £70,000 lease per year for the next 20 years. So we pick up a lot of smaller high street buildings. Wendy, you and I have spoken about figures before, and you've fallen off your chair with some of the stuff that I've bought. So yeah, look, there are some technicalities. Planning's a little bit more tricky, but what it does give you, though, it gives you a real good mix of still having a smaller commercial shop, retail unit, and a HMO at the rear and above. So it gives you like a double bubble of rents, which is great. And I've spoken many a time about how I want to save our high streets, because Wendy, you and I have spoken about running around as kids going to the high street on a Saturday morning. I want my kids and their kids to be able to still do that, and the high street is the core of a community. It's the heart of an area, and without it, we're in a pretty sad place. And I think actually people living in HMOs, they want to live in a high street as well as side roads. They want good connectivity, good links to transport, and they also want to be able to get their essentials.
Yeah. So there's a lot of power in commercial, and I think if actually just let me ask you, wave your hand at me if you have been scared to look at commercial. Just wave a hand if you're thinking, oh, it's a bit out of my league. I'm a bit nervous about commercial. Yeah, a few people raising their hands. Yeah. And I can understand that, because it does feel like it's a kind of totally different realm. And the language they use is different as well, isn't it? Which we'll talk about. What do they mean when they say this and that and the other, But, it's like anything. You can learn it. Those commercial agents, they're no different to you or I. Yes, it's maybe a slightly different realm of property, but it isn't such a different realm that they can't explain it or that you can't understand it. So where are you going to find these commercial deals? Where are you going to find some of these commercial properties? Well, online, you could go to LoopNet. LoopNet is the biggest. It's a bit like Rightmove for commercial property. And I think LoopNet is quite good because it's just quite interesting to see what's on there. But a bit like Rightmove, you're probably not going to find the best deals on LoopNet. The best deals are really going to come through your relationship with your local commercial estate agent. And what I found is it's when you pick up the phone and you start to chat to them and you tell them what you're looking for, you tell them what your budget is, and you tell them what you're trying to achieve, very often they're the ones who will actually go out and find you the property. Unlike a residential estate agent who's probably waiting mostly for people to come to him or her, when it comes to commercial, often they're the ones actually sourcing. They're the ones looking out for property. They're the ones driving up and down the high street, where, let's say in Darren's area, thinking that property looks empty. I wonder if I could deal direct with the vendor, make contact with them and see if they're interested in selling, because I've got a purchaser who'd like to buy something like that. And they're the ones who can put the two together. So develop some relationships with local commercial agents. And if you don't know who your local commercial agents are, again, LoopNet is very helpful. You can choose your area, you can see what properties are available, and then contact those commercial agents. Now, when it comes to language, they will talk about yields, but their yields are slightly different from residential. In residential, we talk about rental yield. In other words, we're talking about the yield that the rent is going to give us on the basis of that asset. So is it a 10% yield, 20% yield, 18% yield? What's the yield we're making on the rental income? But a commercial yield is the way that the estate agent or the commercial agent values the property. So it's a very similar algorithm, or it's a very similar computation, but it's done in reverse. So a commercial yield is often done by taking what the rental is and then dividing it by what they might call a multiplier or a valuation level in the area. And that will depend on where is this property, what are the neighbours like, what's the strength of the lease, what is the strength of that title in terms of the person who's leasing the property. And from that, they will then create a commercial valuation of the property. It's a sort of back to front way of doing it when you're used to doing it from a residential point of view. But that's what's called a commercial yield. Again, don't be scared off by it. Commercial agents actually love to share their knowledge. One of the things I found is that when you speak to a commercial agent, if you're not sure about something and you ask them, they love to show how they're a master at commercial property. So don't be scared. This is a great way to find some of those jewels in the crown, I always call them, that can be your expert and wonderful deals that you can find.
But you know what, Wendy, very quickly, not to put people off, because I think this is a real, I'm going to give you a little snippet, I think, of what we'll talk about a week on Saturday. If you're buying a commercial property with a tenant in it, you're probably going to be paying about a 7 to 8% yield on what that rent is. And that building could be worth 300. Well, I've recently bought a building that had a £20,000 lease in situ. And last year it was being valued at 300. The tenant has now left and I've just bought it at 210.
Yes.
Because
And
there is no
that's
yield.
the key. Exactly.
There is no yield.
Yeah,
right.
And that's a really good point, Darren, that you actually don't want to have a tenant in there if you're going to get the best price, because a 100%. Tenant adds value to the property.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's something we'll really talk about a week on Saturday.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah, we'll dig into that. Now, this is an example of commercial property that we bought and turned into 4 flats. It doesn't look much, does it? This Christadelphian hall. In fact, it looks pretty dreadful. And that's because it had been on the market for probably about 7 or 8 years before I drove past it and saw a very faded sign. And I thought, that's interesting. That property looks like it is empty. It's obviously been some kind of church building. The Christadelphians had it, and they used it as a sort of worship centre. And so I had a viewing, nice square property, and we thought this would probably work really well. I was a bit nervous about getting it to be planned, getting planning for an HMO, so we turned it into flats instead. So sorry about the quality of the photo. It's not a very good exterior photo. I think I must have taken this on a drive-by. Not a drive-by shooting, you'll be pleased to know. They're not that bad in there, but a drive-by, so the photo doesn't really do it justice. But these are the flats. So we have 4 one-bed flats in this particular property. Again, they're all rented out. They're very, very, every time we have somebody move out, somebody else moves in very, very quickly. Very, very popular location. But I think you'll be even more surprised when you see the figures. So I bought this property for £55,000. Now the story goes, it's about 1,100 square feet. Story goes that it was up for sale, been up for sale for about 8 years, and it was actually on the market for £75,000. And when I went to view it, I knew they hadn't had interest in it. The commercial agent told me this. So I said to him, well, look, would they accept an offer of 50? And he said, well, I think that's very unlikely, Mrs. Whitaker Large. That's a discount of £25,000. Who do you think you are? So I said, well, look, I've got nothing to lose because I've got no competition on this one. I can see that. They had this empty for a very long time and they're going to be incurring costs on it. So, why don't we do a deal? The agent took it back to the vendors, and actually the vendors had to have a sort of trustee meeting because they were a charity. So it took a bit of a while. They came back and said, we're going to put it up for auction. So I said, okay, what's the reserve price, or what would they like to get? Well, £55,000. I thought, oh, dear, oh dear, you do drive a hard bargain. So I said, well, if I offer £55,000, will they accept my offer? Yes, he said. That was it. The deal was done. It was very, very quick, and we bought it. Now, we spent quite a lot on the refurb, £76,300. Obviously, it needed everything doing to it, but it ended up valuing at £234,000. We got £74,500 out of the deal, and it cash flows £1,600 a month. That's what I call a commercial deal. And it's what you call infinite returns. And I know that all of us want to try and get infinite returns. Wave at me if you would like to get an infinite return where you get £75,000 out of the deal. I'm always looking. I'm always on the lookout for church house number 2, as I'm sure you can well imagine. I haven't quite found it yet. Never mind. We keep searching though. Keep searching. So that's commercial agents. So that's definitely one to add to your list. And as Darren says, we're going to go into more details on this a week on Saturday. So you're going to learn what we're covering here in an hour and a half is just kind of icing on the cake stuff. It's just top level stuff. You're going to want to know more detail if you're going to put this into practice, if you're going to make this happen, if you're going to make this kind of money. And I've got some other fantastic cracking deals I want to share with you tonight. Just wait till we get to the auction section. That's fantastic. Okay, prop tech. Right. Again, wave at me. Thumbs up, heart. Love you, Wendy. If you already use prop tech to find deals. Okay, so I want a thumbs up, a wave at me, a yes, Wendy, or maybe a no, I'm too scared to use prop tech. Oh, prop tech. What is she talking about, prop tech? Is that something you put in a building to hold up the RSJ when you're doing a development? I mean technology, general technology. Who uses general tools, technology? Michael, so honest of you. He said no. But Philip has said yes, that's good. And I can see a few thumbs up going. So Peter, he says yes, great. Peter's onto it. I knew Peter would be onto it. I could just tell he'd be onto prop tech. Maybe a few others are. Well, okay, let me share with you some of the prop tech methods that I know and that I've used, I've dabbled with, and then I'm going to share some of the best ones that I use. So I'm sure you recognize the names of some of these. Property filter, good way of searching for property, a way of being able to sift and sort the deals in an area. You can compare the history of those properties. You can have a look at what's being sold in the locality. At £99 a month, it's not particularly cheap, but you can give your notice at any time. So you could just have a 1 month's subscription and then leave it. Property Market Intel, that's much cheaper. That's £12.49 a month for their starter package. Property Data is £14 a month for their starter package. And a lot of these do very similar things. The key is to find the right area that you want to look in. Once you know your area, then actually the rest of it becomes a lot easier. But then that's true of HMOs generally. When you know where to look, and again, we cover finding it on our one-day HMO discovery experience. So if you're sitting thinking, well, I don't really know how I would use these tools because I don't even know where to invest, well, that's your first hurdle to overcome. Where are you going to invest? And again, we'll explain all of that in our HMO discovery experience. Now, a couple of other ones. Ultimate Property Dashboard. What I like about Ultimate Property Dashboard is they do regular webinars to explain how to use the tools and how to get the best out of it and how to find your deals. There's Lendlord, which you can start on a free subscription. Property Deals Insight, that's £99 a month. And that with Nimbus is probably a little bit more high level. And I think those are good if you're looking to do commercial or if you're looking to do land deals. They have a lot of different deals on those sites. And then a really cheap one is Chimney A. And this is a really sweet little website. This is one that actually I think a lot of solicitors and estate agents use because it's a lot of data that you might be useful if you're doing a due diligence on a property. So if you're looking at the title or you're looking at the searches or you're wondering about some other element to do with the fabric of the building, Chimney A is your site. It won't give you lots of other comparisons, but it will give you lots and lots of local data. And it's only 5p per property. That's a very odd pricing model, isn't it? But yeah, that's what it is. And I think you're absolutely right, Peter, that it will be interesting when these sites incorporate AI. They will have to develop, I think, a bit more to do AI and maybe become a bit more personalized. Now, these are the ones, though, that I am a bit more excited about, because one of the things I love in property is what I call low cost or no cost tools. Now, I'm a pretty frugal person. Yes, I like to spend money on holidays. I have to say that is probably my weakness, is travel. I absolutely love travel. I can't help it. I'm absolutely addicted to it. Darren will tell you every few weeks I'm saying, oh, I can't do that meeting, or I can't meet you because I'm actually off somewhere else in the world. I love it. But that means that I have to have a low cost or no cost solution to a lot of problems that I encounter, because I can't do both travel and run a business and spend money on everything. I have to save money where I can. And these are fantastic tools for saving you money because they are all absolutely free. Yes. Who here likes a freebie? Thumbs up. Yes. Who doesn't like a freebie? Nah, there's nobody here who doesn't like a freebie. We all love freebies, don't we? And these are plugins. So let me explain for those of you who perhaps not quite so technical what a plugin is. So if you, let's say, use Chrome, this is a screenshot from Chrome, you might have something called extensions. And you can find this in the top, on the right-hand side of your Chrome bar. You'll find there's a little puzzle piece. And if you click on that, this window will open. It's called extensions. These plugins plug in to your Chrome and they become what's known as an extension. And what they allow you to do is to have extra pieces of sort of information and snippets added to certain websites. So for example, Patmar. So Patmar, the third one down there, is one that I've been using over the last 5 weeks. And it is actually a property management system. But the great thing about Patmar is that when you install that extension on Chrome, every time you go on Rightmove or Zoopla, you get the history of the property, and you get a little tab at the side of the screen that tells you more about that property, when it was last sold, when the price was adjusted, how long it's been on the market, lots of other detail that actually you can't normally find from Rightmove. It's a really, really nice little plugin. But all of these are really useful as well. And they also give you a huge amount of free stuff behind the scenes. If I were you, and if you've got your camera ready, take a photo straight away of that screen. And I actually, if you're interested, I can take a photo and I can add it. I can send it to you at the end of the webinar. These, I think, are really important plugins because I think they will absolutely revolutionize when you're surfing the web and you're looking for deals. If you've got these extensions in your Chrome, or I'm pretty sure they'll work with Edge as well. They'll probably work with many browsers, but I particularly use Chrome as my browser. But if you're using any of them, they will help you to find comparable property and make sure you're getting a really good property deal, and possibly find you a jewel in the crown. Now, I've only just started using some of these, so I'll update you, but I know that some of my mentoring clients are a whiz when it comes to technology and really love using these tools to find deals. And some of them are absolutely great at it. And we'll be telling you a bit more about that next Saturday. So don't forget about prop tech. Now, auction. So auction, I think, is amazing. Buying property at auction is exciting, but it's also challenging. It has its own challenges. So I'd like to just run through with you some of the top tips for buying at auction. And again, it might be something you're a bit nervous of. If you've been a bit nervous about commercial, you might also think, oh, you know, auction, am I going to be sort of pushed and feel like this sort of emotional pressure to keep bidding and then regret it? Am I going to have buyer's remorse the next day? What if I buy something that's going to fall down and it's in a terrible state? You know, what if I accidentally buy something that actually I suddenly realize, you know, is insecure or has got terrible cracking or the foundations aren't good? Oh, I would have wasted all my money. Those are the fears that I think anybody who's new to auctions, it's natural to have those fears. When I first started buying property at auction, there were a couple of times when I thought, have I made an absolutely terrible mistake? And I think there was one time when probably I had. But do you know what I did? I put the property right back in the auction the next month and sold it, and I made a profit. So that's the great thing about auctions. You can get out of it pretty quickly as well. Mostly, I've always won when I've bought property at auction. But again, remember what we said earlier on about finding a deal. A deal is something that will make you money. A deal is something you can add value to. A deal is something where you've got the process of being able to recycle your cash, recycle your finance to get it out the other side. That's the kind of deal we're looking for tonight. I'm not going to read all of this from Apex Bridging, but there is one sentence that I just want you to look at, and it's the last one on this paragraph. Only 60% of properties sell in the auction room. So this is a report that came out in January. Only 60% of properties sell in the auction room. And I was talking to an auctioneer about 8 weeks ago, and he said to me, although we always say 97% are sold or 86% are sold, the thing is, Wendy, we're allowed to say that, but that doesn't mean to say they all sold in the auction room on the day. Many of them sold beforehand, and many of them sell afterwards. So he said, if you see a property that you really are interested in, make sure you register your interest. Make sure that you tell the auctioneer that you're interested in that particular property so that they can keep you on their system. Because by keeping you on the system, it means after the auction, if it doesn't sell, they'll contact you to see if you want to put in an offer. And sometimes, because you're buying after the auction, you can actually extend the period of time. You don't always have to buy within auction conditions, which is normally a month, to be able to finish the conveyancing, to actually complete the deal. And that's another reason why a lot of people get put off buying at auction.
So there's a few. Jump in there.
Yes, go on, Darren.
A little tip.
Yep.
Always stand in the corner of the room and always at the back, because an auctioneer will always bounce a bid off a wall to get the bid going, and you'll soon see then if you're bidding against you or the wall.
A lot of them these days, though, are online, aren't they?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I was at an auction this week.
In person.
In person. I've never bought anything online.
Interesting. I have bought one property online. Yeah.
No, I always want to see if I'm bidding against the wall.
Absolutely. I think that's really important. And auctioneers will, if they don't think there's been much interest or people haven't registered or there haven't been any viewings, they will start the bidding by bidding against the wall. And that, if you don't know what that means that they pretend that there's somebody who's bid, and they will say, thank you very much, sir. And they sort of indicate to that left or the right side of the room, and there is nobody there. Or there is somebody there. It's Darren. Darren's the person, but Darren hasn't started the bidding, because it's a very bad idea to be the person who starts the bidding. So
never bid first.
Exactly. Never bid first. Always wait for the auctioneer to start the bidding. And if he's exactly. And if he starts too high, then he won't get any other bids. But that's when your opportunity is, because then he won't sell the property and he'll say, I'm very sorry, I can't sell this property today. That's when you approach the desk afterwards and you make your offer. So there's lots of intricacies in buying at auction, little ways of behaving, little ways of, judging the room. The other thing is don't get carried away and don't get attached. I always try and have two properties that I'm bidding on in any auction, so that if I don't get one, I'll get the other. And if I don't get either, doesn't matter. You must set yourself a ceiling price. It's really critical. If you're finding deals or you're interested in finding deals at auction, I would recommend the EIG group. They have the biggest database of auctioneers in the whole of the country. And not only will you find national auctions, you'll also find local auctions. And I often find that it's interesting, but I've had some really good deals from national auctioneers when they don't know where the property is that they're selling. So let me give you an example of this. So this is our pub. It's called the White Swan, as you can see from the picture, and it does look like that. It is that bright. The green is that bright. You do have to wear sunglasses when you are approaching the pub, and it is a pub. We haven't converted it. We have a publican who runs it. And this pub came up for auction, and the guide price was £69,000. And I couldn't go to the auction. It was in London. So I kind of kept my eye on it, and I thought, well, I might not, nothing might happen, but let's wait and see. I registered for all the details, and I did a viewing, actually. And then the day of the auction arrived, and about 4 or 5 hours after the auction, I had a phone call from the auctioneer to say the pub didn't sell. We haven't had any offers. Would you be interested? So I said, well, I might. Yeah, I might. So I was kind of very cagey. So I offered £66,000, which was rejected. So I put in an offer for £1,000 more. And this is before I'd learned my technique of never offering a whole number. But I did offer a whole number on this particular one, £67,000, and it was accepted. It's now worth £140,000. It actually might be worth a little bit more because that valuation was about 2 years ago. We've got an FRI lease for 12 years. So that's a full repairing and insuring lease. So this is the guy who rents it from us. He pays all the insurance. He pays all the repairs. He manages the building for us. He pays £1,200 a month rental. And that's net because we have no outgoings on the property because he pays for all the outgoings. To secure the pub, I paid £6,000 on my credit card. I paid the auction fees and the deposit on my credit card. And I borrowed £61,000 from an investor. So this is a friend of mine who had some money sitting in a bank account that she wasn't really using and she didn't know what to do with. So I said, well, if I pay you 5% a month, sort of in perpetuity, so you always have that income, would you be willing to go in on a deal? And she said, yes. So I pay her £250 a month. And I make £950 a month on a building that I own and that she has helped me purchase. And it cost me £6,000 on my credit card. That is what I call a deal. Cash flow from day one, both parties benefit, and it's got value added, built in. Peter, you've asked a really good question. If a Liverpool property is being sold in a London auction, is there cause for concern on something possibly not obvious to someone from outside the area about the property that it wasn't able to sell locally? That's a great question. Sometimes people from local areas, I think particularly sometimes the northwest or the northeast, think they'll get a better sale price if they put that property in a national auction. Obviously, there's more eyes eyeballing it, for one. You've got more investors who often have bigger pockets because they're down in London and would be looking at it and thinking this is a great investment. So the price is likely to be higher. But the truth is, what I've noticed is that in our area, a lot of properties that get sold in Stoke, they sell for a higher price when it's actually the local auctioneer that's selling it, not when it's a national auctioneer that's selling it. The national auctioneers start at a very low guide price and often start the bidding at a very low price. So once you get 5 or 6 bids in, it's sold, but it's maybe sold at what probably a local auctioneer would have got maybe another third or 2/3 higher than that. So I think it's psychology. I think that sometimes people think that local properties do better if they're in a national auction, but actually I find that that's always the time when me as a local investor can find better deals because I know exactly what I'm looking for. I know where Middleport is. It takes me 7 minutes to get to the pub. I can easily go and see that pub at any time. I'm a local person. So that hugely helps in me being able to evaluate that deal in the auction catalogue.
But I also think as well that you could have a repossession and the bank or the repossession, the asset manager might have a deal with a London auctioneer. I think there's many a reason, Wendy, in it why a property ends up in a London auction that may be in the northwest, northeast.
Yeah. I think it's
Um,
also really important you read you
Legal.
read all the information, read the legal pack, download the legal pack and read it. And if necessary, ask your solicitor. We sometimes pay our solicitor £120. She'll read the legal pack for us and give us a very brief kind of verbal report on it. If there's anything I'm not sure about, again, this is what you're trying to do here is create a regular system to looking at various different ways to find those deals, to get that kind of information into your pocket, because you only need 3, 4, 5 deals, maybe in the first couple of years to hit your goal, to hit your target. If your goal is 3, 4, 5,000 pounds a month income, it really won't take many properties for you to get there. So you don't need to think of this as being sort of overwhelming, but it does need to be systematic. That's what I found works best for me, is having a system to make it work. Now, this diagram I put together, I'm just going to very sort of briefly go through it. But if you're looking for different types of property, where are you going to find them? Where are you going to find those deals? Well, on the left, we've got residential. And sorry, actually across the top is all residential. That top half is all residential. You have to be good at reading diagrams when you look at this. And the left-hand side is the smaller property. So less than, let's say, 120 meters squared is on the left. On the right is larger than 120 meters squared. So 120 meters squared would probably be a typical 6-bed HMO, something like that. If you can imagine that kind of size. Larger, you're looking at bigger buildings. So maybe your 7 beds and bigger HMO. So there are lots of different ways to find these type of properties. We've talked about estate agents. We've talked about national auctions, local auctions, commercial agents. We haven't touched on local marketing or personal marketing, and that's something we're going to cover next week on our Discovery Experience event, because this is another really good way to find deals, is to do some personal marketing. But we haven't got time to cover that tonight. But I wanted to just explain really where some of those tools are that we've been looking at tonight, what kind of properties you're most likely to find in those different sectors. And then finally, the final insider method that professional property traders and investors use is networking. And you might think, well, that's a very simple one. Well, okay, it is. But networking is very, very powerful, because networking allows you to build those relationships and those networks where you can be the first to hear of a deal. I've had this happen to me probably 4 or 5 times over the last couple of years, where somebody's phoned me up. Hi, is that Wendy Whitaker-Large? Yes, that's me. Oh, hello. I believe you invest in Crew. Is that right? Yes, that's right. Well, I've got a property I'd like to sell, and I don't really want to go through the local estate agent. We want a quick deal, and I was wondering if you'd like to come and have a look. And as you get known, as you start to network, as you start to meet other people, find connections, find contacts, you'll find that people will come to you with property. Now, that doesn't mean to say they're always a deal. Okay, so let's remember those first principles. A deal is only a deal if you can make money on it, if you can add value, and if you can get cash flow from day one. Okay, those are the critical things to be thinking about. But nevertheless, it's great when people start to approach you and start to recognize that you're the person they want to talk to about their property. There'll be all sorts of things that will come your way that you'll have to say no to, that aren't right for you at your particular stage of the game. They'll either be too big or they might be too small. They might have high expectations, and that can be sometimes difficult to deal with when you're trying to negotiate. They may have unrealistic expectations. Nevertheless, it's still really important that you get out and meet other people and explain who you are and what you're doing, because you just never know who might be selling their property, and they could do with you to be the one who buys it. You could solve their pain.
And your net worth is your network.
Exactly, Darren. You said it. Your net worth is your network.
Can I just say one thing? What I love about networking is I've experienced this, because obviously I was in property from 24, crikey, 20 years ago. I get people offering me deals now who would never have offered me deals 20 years ago, but they've seen how I've progressed in life with property, and feel like now that I'm in a position to discuss deals with them that they would have never have done in the first place. And I've got agents who sell me properties now that I bought 20 years ago at 40,000, and now I'm buying at 4, 5, 600,000. So that networking is not all about day 1 and day 2. It's about year 3, 4, 5, 10, 15. So I'm butting in on your show. Sorry, Wendy.
No, you're not. It's our show. We always talked about being the Kirsty and Phil of HMOs.
Obviously, I'm Kirsty.
Yes, quite. What are you saying about my hair?
Well, you just wear the trousers, Wendy.
Yeah, that's right. Right, he's got it right. He's got it right. So we haven't even talked about those other things: leaflets, online marketing, banners, advertising, social media, using a VA to help you, because you might be thinking, well, I've got so much to do. How am I going to organize it all? You can get a VA for 2 hours a week. At the moment, I'm interviewing for a new VA. I cannot tell you how incredible it is. You can pay a VA £4 an hour and they will do 4 or 5 hours of work for you per week, or even 2 hours work. For £10 a week, you could get somebody to help you with all of this, manage it all for you, create that system, make it regular. So even if you've got a busy full-time job, even if you've got loads of kids, I've got 4 boys, and I was doing this while I was raising my 4 boys almost single-handedly, because Andy was away working in London during the week. And yeah, I was probably a bit stressed out, which is why I needed a system.
Wasn't he sensible?
He was the sensible one. I think even when he had the opportunity to work locally, he still took his job in London. That says a lot, doesn't it? But this is why system is so important. And for me, systemizing the business has been the key to making it work. So as I said earlier on, I want to invite you to come along to our event week on Saturday. It'll be me and Darren Brewer, which is going to be amazing. And we're going to be talking all things HMO. We're going to be talking about how to find, fund, finish, fill, and future-proof your HMO, what systems you need, how to find these deals, where to find the deals, how do you tenant them? Should you use an agent, or are you going to do it yourself? What about finance? What about if you run out of money? What can you do then? Darren and I have got a combined experience of probably about 50 years when it comes to property. I know you wouldn't think it.
Wendy, 40 of them.
I'm going to get you next week, you know. I think that is absolutely below the belt. The fact is, of course, I still look younger than you, though, Darren.
Obviously, I had 10 hard years.
You had 10 very hard years.
Yeah.
Exactly. And we're going to be telling you about our stories, how we've made our money, what projects we've done, the things we've learned. You're going to get a fantastic bonus bundle, which I've explained already. I can tell you a bit more about that. And we only have 3 places left. So if you are free and if you would like to join us on Saturday, February the 24th in London, we would love to have you there. Everything's included. You don't need to bring a packed lunch. We will serve you a delicious lunch, coffees, teas, pastries. It's in London. It's at the Danubius Hotel, which is Regent's Park. So you just got to get yourself along to Regent's Park. I will be there from probably about 8 o'clock in the morning, getting the early train down from Crewe. If you can get your early train in to London like I can, I know we're just going to have an absolutely amazing day. It's only £99 plus VAT, and it will be, you know, just a really great learning day. So we'd love to have you there. If you've got any questions about the day, if you'd like us to tell you anything more about it, we can stay on for a few minutes and answer any questions you have. But I'd just like to thank you for being here this evening. Thanks to Darren as well for being here. Great to have you, Darren.
Nice to bring some entertainment to the webinar.
Absolutely, lighten it up. Yeah, start the way you mean to carry on.
I think it's going to be a great day. I think there's lots to learn. You know, looking forward to meeting new people and hear what they're trying to achieve. Yeah, you know, it's great to be able to put some energy back in the room and hopefully bring some of my experience, because if you haven't had the pain, you don't understand, you know, what you're going through. And, you know, for me, I've learned a lot in that last 20 years, and I want to be able to push that to people so they don't experience the pain that I experienced. Yeah, which is fantastic. Now, there are a couple of questions that I just need to very quickly flick back to. So I think, Peter, you asked a question about rooms, about, let me just quickly go back to your question here. I know there are a few. Do you track weekly numbers of people looking in an area or test with a mock advert
for a room based on rough quality design standard of your product? So I think that's a really good question. I think knowing how to test for rooms or find out about the market is a bit of an art in itself. And we're going to go through some of those ways in which you can do that. So you'll be there, Peter, and you'll learn how to find it. I do think getting to know Spare Room is critical, though, because there are lots of things on Spare Room which actually are hidden tips and tools and kind of tricks that if you are not so familiar with Spare Room, you wouldn't know about. So we're going to do a bit of a live demonstration on Spare Room next week to share that with you. So I think you'll get a lot out of that particular session. So yeah, no, thank you for asking the question. I've just put into the chat panel as well, just the bonuses that you get for coming. Now, other questions that have popped up. Somebody wrote something about which is my favorite, and I'm not quite sure what they mean. Which is my favorite what?
Person to
Dear,
work
there's a
with.
question.
Person to work with,
Oh,
Wendy.
right. Is that? Oh, it was. Of course, it's got to be you, Darren, hasn't it? Who else could it be?
I am very quickly. I think Spare Room's a great tool, and it's not a lot of money actually to find tenants on Spare Room, and I think it's great value for money. So I think it's something we can explore, like you say, next Saturday, Wendy. I think it's key to HMO actually.
Yeah, at the moment, it's really the best tool that there is out there to look at the market. So knowing how to use it, knowing the insider ways to use it, I think is really critical. And I spent a lot of time figuring out Spare Room, how to make it work for me and my business, and it's incredibly useful. So yeah, really good tool. I don't know if there are any other questions. I think it looks like we might have answered them all, Darren. Now there's a first, isn't it?
It's the first, isn't there?
And
no one's asked anything that we can't answer. So that's
well,
really
that is indeed. So if anyone does have any quick questions, very happy to stay on and answer your questions. Looking forward very much to seeing you a week on Saturday. I know we've had some bookings through this evening, which is great. So I'm really looking forward to following up with you all this evening. And finally, remember, for those of you that stayed right to the end, there are a couple of bonuses. Do you not remember the bonuses? I'm sure you remember the bonuses. Even tonight, we're giving away free gifts. So this is what I'd like you to do. If you want to get those two bonuses of the deal analysis spreadsheet, which I showed you earlier on, and my builder cost master sheet, which talks all about how to ensure that you get your pricing right for your deals, you just need to email me. And I'm going to put my email in the chat panel. So just send me an email and I will send you those two bonuses. All you need to do is send me an email saying, hi, Wendy, please can I have the bonuses? And I will send them to you. Unless you send me an email, though, you're not getting them, because you know what I want? I want you to be on the pitch and not in the stands. If you're in the stands tonight, just watching, looking on, not taking part, no. I want you to be on the pitch. And this is my way of saying, come on, get on the pitch. I'm there. I'm the best manager, the best supporter you can have. And you can be a Premier League football player on the HMO pitch. So get on the pitch and make a difference. And actually, Darren does play football. He knows what it's like to be on the pitch. So he knows the feeling of playing the game and being absolutely there.
I'm not quite sure I was a Premier League footballer, Wendy, in all fairness.
Well, you're an HMO Premier League player, though, Darren.
Peter's asked a great question. Peter, I'd love to have a chat with you about that, about our ProPod brand next Saturday. I'm sure Wendy will agree. That's probably a great question for me to answer.
Yeah,
about
definitely.
HMO versus co-living.
We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that and much more, no doubt. Really good question.
Really good question.
Well, guys, I'd like to say a massive thank you to you all for being here this evening. Thank you so much for attending. We've had a really good evening. I hope you have too. Thanks very much indeed to Darren for being here. And thank you to you all for your contributions and questions. And we very much look forward to seeing those of you who can make it a week on Saturday. If you would love to come to one of these events, but that date just doesn't suit you, please let me know. We have got other dates coming up in 2024, so we'd love to offer you an invitation to one of our other events later in the year. But do tell me if this is a kind of event that you would like to come to, you'd like to see me and Darren together, sharing our knowledge, helping you to make money from HMOs. And without further ado, have a lovely evening. Thank you so much. Speak to you soon.
Good night, guys. Thank you.
Bye.